Hey friends, welcome back to the Finding Joy in Your Home podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Balmain. So in the last couple of episodes, we have been talking about setting goals for the new year. And we have been breaking down, we've been in brainstorm mode. We've been breaking down what this process looks like. A lot of us, when we hit January, are ready to set some new goals for the year. We're excited, we're motivated, but we want to be able to make goals that are actually sustainable, that we can fit into our routines, that we're actually going to take action on. That's the hard part. So in the last two episodes, we broke those down. And I had shared that in today's episode, Jason would be joining me on the podcast to break down our actual goals for 2024. The thing is, Jason woke up this morning with his cold he's kind of had is exasperated and he is not talking well. So this morning we're sitting there and I'm thinking, there's no way you're going to be able to do this. So I said, do we need to push that episode to next week? And he was like, yes. So Jason will be joining me. It's going to be a really fun one. We have all of our goals planned out and some really fun things we want to talk through with you guys. So since we're not able to record that right now, and I am in full on baking mode for Christmas, what I'm giving you guys is actually an extra special bonus episode. So this episode is on setting goals for the new year, but in a more theoretical standpoint, right? So Jason and I were actually going to talk about our actual goals and breaking those down. But today's episode is one that's going to be some really good goal planning tips that are built on these last two episodes I shared on the podcast. So this class you're getting today is actually a class from my private mentorship program, My Homemaking Mentor. It's for Christian homemakers, and every month we have a different focus. So we have different courses each month. So the course for December for MHM members is on setting goals and planning for the new year. And so none of this overlaps with the podcast, but this episode perfectly builds upon those two episodes. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you guys access today to that masterclass because it's absolutely perfect. And in fact, it's a perfect one to listen to before Jason and I discuss our actual plan. So, I mean, I'm just going to pretend like I planned it like this way because it works out perfectly. And this is a great one to listen into. So we're going to go ahead and press play on that. You are also going to hear in a little while from our two sponsors for today's episode. We have Magic Mind and AquaTrue. And my quick announcement for you is that we do have an entire goal planning workshop that we're going to be doing the first week of January, like hands-on nitty-gritty, like you're going to plan out your things. You're going to set routines. It's going to be amazing. I will have information for that coming the day or two after Christmas. So at this point, it's coming a couple days after Christmas. Just make sure you sign up at findingjoyinyourhome.com/newsletter. That'll put you on my email newsletter to be able to find out about that. Findingjoyinyourhome.com/newsletter. Also, really fast, wanted to let you guys know that I just did a little mini restock in our bookstore, findingjoybookstore.com. We did our big Christmas shop in November and early December where we sold, we had lots of new things and we have an overstock of a few things. So we have Jason Sterling Spectacles books for kids, all three of my cookbooks, although cookbook number 3 only has like 10 copies left, and our classic reprint series and just a handful of some of our own printed stuff we have a surplus of. So I went ahead and restocked those in the store. There's very limited quantities on most of them. And except for cookbook number 2, we have like 100 in stock because that was our latest order we just did for those. So anyway, so go buy some copies of cookbook number 2, which is From Scratch Pantry Basics to learn how to make all your pantry staples this year, from ketchup and mayonnaise to pickles to dry mixes, make your own homemade Bisquick, all of that stuff. Go check it out. But I just wanted to let you guys know because some of these items are almost out of stock. So go to findingjoybookstore.com to grab your copies. Stuff will be restocked Q1 in our Q1 shop opening, but I have no clue when that's going to be at this point. So it could be all the way till March till we open up again. So check it out, findingjoybookstore.com. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jamie from a couple of days ago doing this goal setting workshop. Hey ladies, welcome. We are kicking off our course for December, which we are going to wrap up. We're starting it this week. We'll wrap it up next week after Christmas. You can really have a lot of these ideas in mind as we're heading into the new year. However, anytime that you listen to this course is going to be wonderful. So if you're into January and you're catching up, or it's even later in the year, that's going to be great because what we're talking about is really not specific to the new year. This is all stuff that we can put into practice all year long. There's always great opportunities to set new goals, create new habits, form good schedules within our home. But it just so happens that the beginning of the year is a perfect time to talk about it. So today's first lesson is setting new goals. So how do we go about setting new goals? It's a big topic. People are talking about their goals. People are excited. People are feeling overwhelmed by setting new goals. So we're going to do a little intro lesson today on how to set some new goals. So this week on the podcast and last week, I have been talking about kind of this general idea. And so I have already covered 2 episodes on the podcast that were perfect precursors to today's chat. So I'm not going to repeat any of that because you can go listen to those full episodes. The first one's like an hour long. So I don't know how long the second one is. So the first one is doing a year-end review. So learning how to look back over your year, look back over 2023. And I did this kind of in real time with you guys, looking at what our year was like, the good and the bad, and how you start to kind of break that down and process it. So that's the first episode. I have the links here for you guys so you can go click on. The second episode is choosing a theme or a word for your year and how that's different than setting a resolution. So those 2 would both be great ones. You can listen to this and then I would go listen to those 2, especially if you're feeling kind of stuck of like, I don't even know what I want my goals to be. I don't know what the goals should be. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Go listen to those 2 episodes because it helps walk you through the process of establishing new goals. So today we're going to dive in with how to make and set goals for your life, for your homemaking. For me, goal setting really bleeds into every area of my life. It kind of just seeps into every corner because there are so many things that we can set goals around. And I know this can feel maybe like a boring topic to some and an overwhelming topic to other people. Depending on where you're at, you can feel like, oh, goals, I can't be intentional with anything right now. And when you are feeling that kind of out of control survival mode, I think goals can be really, really helpful, even in a season like that. And in fact, if you are in a season of survival, then these setting goals can actually be the best thing that you need. Now, you're probably not setting goals of like, I'm going to write a book this year, or I'm going to, maybe what we deem as more exciting goals. Those are probably not the goals you're setting. You're probably setting some really nitty gritty, down to earth. I'm going to figure out meal planning and I'm going to get dinner on the table by 6 p.m. every day. That's a wonderful goal. But a lot of times we don't acknowledge that these very basic goals can actually be wonderful and incredible within our homes. And we kind of just think of those as boring and maybe not even worth setting a goal in. But there are absolutely times, like I set really basic goals within my home, and there's certain seasons where I can set more fun goals. So I've had a lot of gardening goals the last 2 years, which have been fun goals, but also a lot of work. I set the goals and I get excited. And then we get in halfway through the gardening season. I think this is just the gardener's fate. But you get halfway through the gardening season and you're like, why did I do this to myself? This was too much. So goals can definitely be a mix there of fun and also overwhelming. But I like to set fun new ones like that. I'm learning how to quilt right now. That's been really exciting. But I've also been in seasons where I was so overwhelmed and so in the trenches of just trying to get dinner on the table by 6 every day, which was a feat in and of itself, that my goals were really basic, like survival mode goals of like, I will wake up, I will make breakfast. But when you actually can build these goals into actionable routines and schedules, like we're going to talk about in lesson 2, it can really be life-saving, whether you're in a season of more refreshment or you're in a season of utter, ridiculous, wild survival mode for whatever reason, right? All right, so if you want to go, especially from survival mode to actually thriving in your home, a really key piece of that is goal planning. So I was looking back over my notes on a talk I did on goal setting back in 2017. And it's amazing to see how different my life is today. That on one hand, 2017 does not feel like that long ago. On the other hand, I look at my children and how much they've grown, and we've added 2 babies since then. And I feel like 2017 was a very long time ago. And where I'm at today is not in the constant survival mode that I was of having 5 children 4 and under. So my daughter must have been like a baby when I was writing that article. And so a lot of my stuff on goal planning was utter survival mode in the trenches. So today I'm not in that constant ridiculous survival mode. I have other things on my plate at this point. I have things that are harder in certain ways, right? I have things that are definitely easier than being in the trenches of little children. And in those days, I was really lucky to keep everybody alive and get dinner on the table. Today, I have a lot more capacity in a lot of ways. But one thing that struck me as I was reading through my notes and what I was sharing and what was helping me at the time, one thing that struck me that has absolutely remained constant, despite being in two very different seasons in 2017 and now today, is that I have always struggled and will probably always struggle with figuring out how to prioritize everything. No matter what season you're in, that is a lot. So I do more today than I did in that season. I mean, not really. I was constantly going and constantly busy and changing, diapers and, all the things. I was constantly busy, but I have more output of things today, right? But no matter the season, prioritizing it all, prioritizing my time, organizing what things to tackle, getting my brain more organized are always struggles for me, regardless of the season. I think it's just something that probably most of us struggle with. So if I can plan out my time, if I can set priorities, if I can even craft some goals for my day and for my life, even when they're boring ones, even when they're boring, get dinner on the table by 6 p.m. When we set those, it's so much easier to be more diligent and effective with my time. So of course, things are always going to come up. You've got sick kids, you forget to put dinner in the crock pot, unexpected guests, so on and so forth. Things do come up. We can never be 100% in control of our time because at the end of the day, God is the one that's 100% in control. He's the one who's directing our time. But in faith, in prayer, we can set these goals and these plans to be wise stewards of our time that God has given us. So with goal setting and our homes, I have this great quote. This is by Crystal Payne from her book, Say Goodbye to Survival Mode. If you are in a season where you feel like I am in survival mode, her book is excellent. It's an old book, but it's still completely relevant today, and it's wonderful. So that's Say Goodbye to Survival Mode. So she says, many times busyness is often mistakenly equated with productivity, but those words are not synonymous. Just because we're spinning our wheels, rushing from one commitment to the next, doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing anything worthwhile. So this reminds me in that overwhelming season of having 5 little children, 4 and under, and in my season today, one thing that I do a lot is I keep daily checklists, and I will absolutely write things in. Like if I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to clean out the fridge real fast, and it wasn't on my list, I will write it in to check it off. And I tell you what, I know it sounds silly and there's all the jokes and memes about that, but the thing is, for my life, for seasons that I've been in, most of my daily work is very in the trenches. It's making dinner, it's cleaning up the dishes, it's making lunch and cleaning up the dishes, and breakfast and cleaning up the dishes, and sweeping the floor 45 times a day, changing diapers on loop, like these things that don't feel like we're accomplishing much. And you do get to the end of the day and you're like, the house is a mess again. What did I do today? So many seasons can have that, whether it's little kid related things or not. There's so many seasons where we do feel like we've been busy all day, we got nothing done. Some of that is because we are wasting our time and spinning our wheels. We're picking up our phone way too often to check Instagram. We're doing things that we shouldn't be in that way. We are spinning our wheels, feeling busy, not getting anywhere. Other times, though, it's because we're not recognizing the work that we're doing. And so I love keeping a checklist because it helps me to get to the end of an exhausting day, feel like I got nothing done, and look at my list and go, no, I did accomplish things. It just doesn't feel as wonderful and rainbowy as I feel like it should. But I did get a lot done, and I'm doing the things that I need to prioritize right now in this season. So I always keep that in mind. So one of the things, let's jump right into goal setting. I love this topic, so I could talk for 1,000 years, so I'm not going to. Number one is to set realistic goals. This is the biggest thing. Now, what I find is that most people fall into one of two camps. Maybe you're more in the middle, so you're going to have to figure out on any given day how you're feeling, but you're going to generally fall into one of two camps. The overachiever firstborns are over here. That's me. Not just firstborns, but the people who are dreamers. You're a dreamer, you're a doer, you're a go-getter, you're like, I'm going to do a million things. That's wonderful. I am those people. However, our tendency then is that we're going to overdream, we're going to overschedule, we're going to overplan, We're going to say, I've never written a book in my life, and next year I'm going to write 5. Or next month I'm going to write a book, or whatever. Like we tend to go too big, too far, too fast, too crazy, and we're never, ever, ever going to reach any of those goals. And so then we do nothing because we overplanned and overscheduled. I have grown a lot in that area in the last 10 years, but that is my tendency. The other tendency, and I have friends who are like this, you have to actually fight against the opposite tendency. The opposite tendency is to say, well, I can't do that. I could never do that. I don't have enough time or energy. I can't, that kind of just limiting belief that you can't do these things. You can't take on more things. Or you're just scared. You're scared of failure. Perfectionists tend to be more on this side of, if it can't be absolutely perfect, then I'm not even going to try. And it really can limit you in a lot of ways, because then you don't ever make the goals. You don't ever push yourself to strive and try more. And the thing is, you might set 5 goals, but maybe only hit 3, but you kind of made progress in the other 2. And it's really easy to feel like, well, I've completely failed. Why was that even worth it? No, you pushed yourself and you did 3 things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So really kind of figuring out which camp do you fall into. Again, if you're kind of in the middle, then, and maybe on any given day, you got to figure out how you're feeling. But we have to be very honest with ourselves. Where are the areas that we're failing? Are we setting them too big, too high, too fast, too crazy, and it's not realistic? Or are we being too pessimistic? Are we being too Debbie Downer that we can't do it? We don't have time. I don't even know how to start. I'll never do it. No, maybe you need to push yourself a little bit to set a goal. You don't have to set 15 goals for the year. No, set 1. Okay. But we want to be realistic on both ends of the spectrum. And I think it's really important when you kind of recognize how you are, it can be really helpful. There are times, Jason knows this about me. He's my counselor. There are definitely times where I'm like, babe, I got this crazy idea. Like, do you think I could do this in 3 days? And most of the time he's like, no, that's ridiculous. And I have to be like, yeah, okay, I know. It's too crazy. Okay, I'll give myself a month, whatever. But there are definitely other times where I'm like, okay, this is really cool. Like, I think I'm going to try to do it. And he might be like, I don't know. Like, can you get it done? And there are times now that I've learned that if I am passionate enough and excited enough, I'm going to make that thing happen. And so there are times where I'm like, no, I'm going to try it. But you also have to be okay that if you don't succeed, if you don't hit that goal, that's okay. That's okay, because so much of the learning is in the journey. It's not the end destination. It's figuring, let's say you have some crazy fitness goals for next year, which I do. They're actually not crazy. They're very moderate and tame. I've gotten so much better because with fitness, I would overdo it. I would try to jump in and be like, I'm going to do P90X and do some crazy thing, even though I haven't worked out in 10 years. And then I'd kill myself on day 1. I couldn't move for a week, and then I would never do it again. Okay. That's what I would do over and over again. Now I'm very moderate. I'm going slow. I'm not hurting myself. I'm actually probably going a little less crazy than I could, but I'm making very sustainable goals. I'm making very sustainable progress, and I'm very okay with that. My fitness goals for next year are not crazy. They're like, do stretching every day. Okay, I'm working on that. I'm getting it into a routine. And I don't remember what my point was bringing up fitness in the first place. So I apologize. I get too excited about talking about my goals and all the things. But we do have to be careful. We have to make sure that we are limiting ourselves if we need to, or stretching ourselves over here if that's what we need to be doing. All right, there's a great little tiny book by Kevin DeYoung called Crazy Busy. He says, we are busy because we try to do too many things. We do too many things because we say yes to too many people. We say yes to all these people because we want them to like us, and we fear their disapproval. So that's important to remember. Are we setting goals? Are we making progress? Are we doing things within our home and with our life and for our families that are things that are actually important to our families, that are things that God has called us to? Or are we doing things because we think other people want us to do those things? All right, so as we're creating goals, then you want to write those goals down on paper. You can do it electronically, that's fine. But what I mean is you need to get them down. Don't just have them floating around in your brain. Get them down. I prefer paper. Jason prefers electronics. But spend some time alone. Grab a yummy cup of coffee or tea or hot chocolate and kind of just let your mind wander and dream and think and pray. That's what we really focused on in these 2 podcast episodes I've recommended to you. You don't have to take action on any of those. You're just supposed to be thinking, brainstorming. And this is really helpful if you're sitting here and you're like, Jamie, I don't have any goals for next year. What are you talking about? go through those 2 podcast episodes. They're going to help. So you want to think through different areas of your life, really think through some of those big dreams you have, write a book one day, give yourself some time to really dream, think about these things, dissect what didn't work well this year that I kind of need to reorient and pick up for next year. And as you start to solidify your goals, get them down on paper. So just getting them down can really help. Writing them out makes me feel like they're more real. It's a great way to get excited about your goals, even boring ones like we're going to pay off debt. Get those written down. They can be very, very motivating. I also think it's helpful to think through some different areas of in your life to set goals. So here's a whole list I was just jotted down real fast. So in your homemaking, right? So honing your homemaking skills, learning how to can, get better at organizing, decluttering your home. There's so many things in your homemaking, in your household that you could set goals in. Homeschooling. Jason and I have all kinds of homeschooling goals, and some of them are really boring, like finish their handwriting book, and some of them are really fun. Introduce Shakespeare study. You can have all kinds of goals. Goals within ministry, working from home, exercising. I've been working on that one. Learning how to cook or learning how to cook better, learning how to cook from scratch, learning how to bake, organizing, managing your home well, your own personal education or professional education, parenting, your marriage, finances, paying off debt. I mean, there's gardening. I mean, you could have some fun with this. Now, I don't recommend that you set goals in every single one of those areas. I have goals in 5 main areas that I break down further. Now, part of that is because Jason and I do run a business together. And so our business has very substantial goals. And not just goals, but I kind of use goals as like my to-do list for the year. So it'll be, write my next cookbook. That's going to be one of my business goals, and have those kind of broken down. So some of these things are just things that we're going to be doing throughout the year, but I call them goals. It's my to-do list. But you don't have to be that granular. I really like goals. I really thrive off of this. I'm a high intensity person, right? And so for me, that works really well. I love doing that. If you are on this other side where you don't set goals, you don't push yourself, don't try to do 12 goals this year. Start with 1 or 2. Start with 1 or 2 focuses. And here's the secret, you guys. You don't have to plan out the entire year. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to want to work on next November. Pick a goal or 2 and say January and February, I'm working on this. That's it. And then March, I'm going to pick something new. Or maybe have some general ideas of other things you want to work on. That's fine. But don't feel like you have to have everything planned out because 12 months is a long time. Things absolutely change. Schedules change. New needs arise. Things that were important in December are no longer important by July sometimes. So give yourself that flexibility too, that you don't have to have everything planned out. It does not have to be concrete. You can have goals and they can change throughout the year. Okay. All right. So to kind of get your creative juices flowing, I just jotted down some goals that I've had in the past in some of these different areas. So working from home, one of my goals many years ago, which you guys are now benefiting from, was to create and film a podcast. That was a huge goal at the time. That was really overwhelming. I didn't know how to. I mean, my first episodes are so embarrassing and all my first videos, it's like, oh my gosh. But we did it. We pushed through and that took a ton of work to figure out. Now, I can whip together a podcast in 20 minutes and not even think about it because it's so easy and Jason edits them and they're done. And it's just a normal weekly routine now. It's not something that we have to really put a lot of effort into other than writing and filming, but it has become second nature to me. Develop an entire online academy for Christian women. That was a goal for like 5 years. And here MHM is, right? And this one, again, is something that does take a lot of time and effort for me, especially revamping things this year and trying to get back to doing better courses for you guys like these fun monthly ones. But it is something that I really had to push. That was a goal. That was like my entire goal for 2017, I think, when we launched it. Post 4 to 5 times a week on my blog. That is a very outdated goal. That is a goal that I had many years ago. Now it would be more like show up on Instagram 4 to 5 times a week. All right. Exercise and health, take my vitamins morning and night, go on walks in the evenings with my husband and children 3 times a week, do my daily stretching and workout videos, which I've actually been doing pretty well, eat 90 grams of protein a day. That is my current goal. And I'm not hitting that, but I'm working on it. So my first goal was I eased in for like a month, 30 grams of protein for breakfast, which I've now been hitting. And then my overarching goal now is 90 grams of protein for the day. And I think I just need to download like a, what do you call it? Like a, not a fitness, but like a, not a calorie tracker, but one of those that I can put my food in and it can estimate for me how many grams I'm eating. Because I had some peanut butter earlier today and I had like leftover spaghetti and I made the spaghetti like super meaty. Like it was like half meat. And I was like, okay, there's some protein in here. And so now I don't actually know exactly what my protein is for the day. So that's something that I'd like to start doing, is get in the habit of just like logging my food in, so that like I don't want to do that forever, but so that I can really get to a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, if I eat about this much, I'm getting about 90 grams of protein. That's my food goal right now. So that's what I'm currently working on. Personal goals: read my Bible every day, different Bible reading plans. Those are goals that I have every single year. Spend at least 10 devoted minutes in prayer each morning. Read 2 books a week. I may hit my reading goal for this year. I am at 100 books read for the year, and my goal is 104. And I thought at the beginning of this month, there's no way I was going to hit it, which was totally fine. We've had such a busy year. But I'm only 4 books away. And I have, 9 days? 10 days. Okay, I can do this. I'm going to do it. I'm in the middle of a couple books, so we'll see. But setting a reading goal is great. 1 book a week, 1 book a month. Setting a reading goal is fantastic and can be very, very attainable. If you have no habit of reading whatsoever, do not set 104 books as your goal. Set 1 book a month or 2 books a month. And that's what we did. Jason and I have been doing reading challenges now for many, many years. And it was like we were reading 35 books a year and then 45 books a year. And it's kind of just grown and stretched. And reading is kind of both of our personalities. We really love it. Not everybody has the same interest in reading, and that's absolutely fine. We will spend hours in the evening reading instead of watching TV because it's something that we really enjoy and is very life-giving to us. On a Saturday morning, if we happen to have a slow morning, you will find both of us on the couch reading. That's what we enjoy doing. And so that becomes a higher priority for us because of that. But you and your personality and your family, it might not be. Maybe you have sports that fill that void. Whatever it is, really think through what that looks like for you. But I do think everybody should read somewhat. Reading is absolutely wonderful for, growing in so many different areas. But it doesn't have to be your whole personality like it is for Jason and I. All right, household goals: start a garden, learn how to do a fall garden, etc., etc. Grow enough tomatoes to can for the entire year. That has been my goal 2 years running. I have not hit it, but that's okay. Every year I get a little bit closer. I learn another little thing towards that. One of these years I'm going to hit it. Learn how to make homemade laundry detergent or dishwasher detergent. I mean, the list could go on with household goals. There's so many great things that you could do. But again, don't overload yourself. You're looking at a lifetime of learning. Don't try to accomplish everything in 2024 that you've been wanting to do for the last 10 years and be like, this is finally my year that I'm going to conquer the world and change everything. No, this is lifelong learning, lifelong changing. So one of my huge goals is in the next 10 years, yeah. I want to say 5. See, that's the go-getter in me. In the next 10 years, I want to learn how to grow 95% of our own produce for our family. And that's a lot of produce. I want to learn how to grow it, preserve it for our family. And I am nowhere near that. But that is my 10-year goal. That's not my 2024 goal. That's my 10-year goal. And so what my goal with gardening every year is just to add 1 new thing. I started out having 0 experience with gardening, knowing nothing. So this last year, one of my goals for 2023 was learn how to grow onions and potatoes. I've never done either of those, and they're a whole different animal than putting some tomato seeds in the ground. And so I had to figure out how to do those. That was my big goal for 2023. I don't know yet what my gardening goal for 2024 is, and I don't think gardening is going to be a huge focus of my year. The way that our year is shaping up, I don't think it's going to be a huge, huge focus, but I'm going to do 1 new thing. So it probably means finding 1 new item that I'm going to grow or conquering some new thing. I will add 1 thing of gardening this year. And when you do that, I already look back over the last 2 years of being really intentional in this area. I have grown so much and I have learned so much when it comes to gardening. And if I keep doing this year after year, in 10 years, I'm going to look completely different in my gardening skills than I do even this year. So a lot of this is look at what you can slowly be building. The end goal is not for you to be a perfect human being next year. The end goal is to just be learning and growing in different areas of your life. And then also keeping in mind, number 3, remember the season of life that you're in. Theodore Roosevelt says, do what you can with what you have where you are. So I always say, do the best you can with what you have and trust the Lord with the rest. So look at the season that you're in. And this is, over the years, this is something I've had to really remind myself of in. If I've been in seasons with little kids. I have 2 young children again. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I have 5 who are in homeschool. My days are very busy with that. There's other seasons. Maybe you're caring for an aging parent or someone who is chronically ill within your family. Maybe you are working outside the home right now. Maybe you are, you could go on and on and on and on with the different things that make us busy in different seasons. So recognizing the season you're in, so I just gave a great example of this. I was just talking to my sister-in-law. They just moved into a new house. They're on property for the first time ever. And she has all these fun, amazing, incredible gardening goals for next year. And I'm like, we're going to do a massive one. And they're excited. And she's been dabbling in gardening the last few years in their smaller space. And she's so excited. And it made me go, oh, I want it. Me too. But I really think we absolutely might be moving out of this house soon. There's so many things up in the air that I don't think 2024 is going to be the year of gardening for me. I just don't think it is. And it's okay to recognize that and realize that we're going to have a year that's off for that. That's not going to be my big focus. As much as I would love it to be, it's not going to be, and that's okay. So recognizing the season you're in, what the year has ahead for you, and just being okay with that. So same way I have to recognize this every time when we become pregnant with a new baby. Is I have to realize that my capacity, my energy, my time is going to be very different, because instead of doing all these fun projects that I want to do, my energy is going to go towards growing that new baby, that I'm actually doing something very productive by growing that baby. So, and then even postpartum. So Ricky is now 16 months old, and it usually takes me a good year to feel like I'm kind of back to speed. And I'm feeling that now. I'm feeling great. I feel like I have so many projects I want to do. I'm like, let's go. But it takes a while. And I recognize it's just been in the last 4 or 5 months that I have felt that again. And so many different seasons will take you in and out, depending on what you're in. So really think about that. What season of life are you in? What constraints do you have? And what freedoms do you have that come with that? Because certain constraints. So with homeschooling, we're home all the time. With running our business from home, we're home all the time. So that lends itself to a lot of constraints. We say no to a lot of outside activities so that we can prioritize the right things that we feel like God is leading us to right now. But it also gives us freedom in certain ways. We're home to cook a lot more food. We're able to make pancakes in the morning while we do read alouds. So looking at your constraints probably also give you freedom in certain other ways. So look at, what are your constraints? What are the blessings in that? How can you, even in something that maybe just feels like an entirely hard situation, how can you find blessing in that anyway? And really look at that realistically. All right. Crazy Busy, the book Crazy Busy by Kevin DeYoung. He says, God does expect us to say no to a whole lot of good things so that we can be freed up to say yes to the most important things he has for us. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave you there for that. The next lesson will be super fun as we get into breaking these down and putting them actually onto your schedule in new routines, new schedules. It will be a shorter lesson because we're just going to get straight into that. So thank you guys for joining me. This is going to be a really fun course. And then I also can't wait for January as we jump right into the next fantastic topic.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for tuning in with me today. Hopefully you got some really good takeaways on goal setting and goal planning and setting new goals for the new year, all of that fun stuff. Lord willing, in the next episode, if Jason's feeling better after Christmas, he will be joining me next week where him and I will be discussing that. We will also be talking about reading challenges and reading goals for 2024. We've got a lot of those normal episodes coming up soon, which will be fun. I always love the end of December, beginning of January episodes are always so much fun. So go ahead and look forward to that. We will be doing our 1-day goal setting workshop, which will be like a hands-on, hold your hand, let's do this thing planning. First week in January. I will have details releasing next week. So go to findingjoyinyourhome.com/newsletter to make sure that you're on my email newsletter for when that comes out. And we do have a restock in our bookstore of just a few items, and they are selling out quick. So if you want my cookbooks, Jason's children's book series, our classic reprint series, head on over to Finding Joy Bookstore.
overachiever.com. And thank you so much. If you are listening to this before Christmas, Merry Christmas. I hope you have a wonderful time with your family this week, celebrating the birth of our Lord. And I will see you guys back here next week for the next episode.